Am I speaking loud enough? Good afternoon to everybody who's joining us. Um, Welcome, Today our session is on starting a group home in Ohio. My name is Anita Kayat. I am a SCORE mentor with the Cleveland chapter of SCORE, and I'd like to start out by giving you a public service announcement about SCORE. Again, our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. We hope that you, as a small business owner, will get all the support you need to be successful in starting or growing your business. We know, particularly in the Cleveland area, that small businesses are driving our economy. I just recently read an article about the fact that Cleveland stands as a great example of revitalization of downtown, and it's primarily because of small business moving in and creating residents downtown. So we're happy that you've taken on the job of becoming a business owner, and we're here to support you in doing that. We have the largest network of free volunteer small business mentors across the nation. We have a total of over 10,000 mentors in every major city. But the wonderful thing is that if we in Cleveland don't have a mentor with the background necessary to provide you support, we can tap into that whole network and find somebody who has a similar background and can be able to help you. So don't hesitate if you think your business is a little off the wall. We'll find somebody for you. So we provide mentoring. We're again doing a lot of it remotely, but we do some in person. We do training mostly through webinars. But the wonderful part of our system is our resource portal, our website, www.score.org/Cleveland. All kinds of resources on that that include a listing of all the upcoming webinars, probably close to 100 recorded webinars, all kinds of templates, blogs, articles, anything you need to get started on your business. And we don't charge you, partially because the SBA helps us, but mostly our budget comes from local businesses in the community who want to support the growth of small businesses. So we're very pleased by that. This is a snapshot of our website. As I said, you can look at live or recorded webinars. You can request a mentor and just browse through all the other resources that we have. So do check it out when you get the opportunity. So our discussion today is on starting a group home in Ohio. We've had so many clients who are interested in this, so we felt it was time to put together information that might help you understand what's involved and how to get started. And I noted that one of the things that gives people feelings of power, not just money or status, but more than anything else, is helping others. And that's fantastic. So, you know, anybody who's wanting to start a group home obviously is interested in helping other people. So I hope by the end of this session, you will know what constitutes a group home, what are the various types, what are the things you need to do to start a group home, and mostly, where can you look for additional information? And I do apologize for my scratchy voice. I had planned to give this webinar back in December, and at that time I had bronchitis, and it just sort of hung on forever, and I didn't want to postpone it again. So I hope you bear with me. So congratulations. Starting a group home is a real challenge, whether you want to do a small one with 3 to 5 people, or maybe you want to develop into a large complex where you have residents, assisted living, nursing, skilled nursing, and then actually nursing homes. It's still this similar type of work on a different scale. So let's talk about your business goals. Why are you interested in starting a group home? Um, do you have a particular group of people that you have in mind? I know we have clients who come wanting to help veterans, want to help homeless people, the elderly, the disabled, people recovering from addictions. So lots of different reasons to start a group home, but you really want to focus on who are the types of clients that you want to serve, and that will determine what type of group home you want to start. Are you doing it because you want to make money? And certainly in some situations you can do very well financially. A lot of it depends on the scale. The more people you serve, the more likely you are to have a positive cash flow. Anytime you deal with individuals, and particularly individuals who have special needs, there's a lot of responsibility and hard work that goes with it. So you have to be an individual who's willing to step up and deal with the issues that come up and making sure that you work to resolve them. So Thomas Edison said, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work. And I think that's generally true. So I'm just looking through the chat to see if there are any quick questions that I need to answer. And one question is, will this video be available? Yes. Probably tomorrow you will get a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording, which we're currently streaming live on our YouTube channel. So you would get both of those. And also within the next week, the recording will be on our website under recorded webinars. So let's talk about, are you ready to start a group home? This is not an easy task. Just being motivated isn't enough. What is your business experience? You have a leg up if you started other businesses and you understand the process required to get a business started. If you have experience with group homes, that makes a lot of difference too. If you don't have the experience, how are you going to get the experience, or how are you going to learn about what are the necessary things that you have to be successful? Do you currently have a home or a facility for this purpose? So if you do, that's certainly a step in the right direction. If you don't, would you plan to lease or buy a property? And then regardless whether you lease or buy, you have to think about what are the requirements to house people in that facility. Do you need to do upgrading in a number of ways? What sort of rehabilitation do you need to the property in order to be ready to have clients? And then, do you have funds available? If you need funding, the first thing, again, lenders are going to look at, and think of yourself being in that position. If you were the lender and someone comes to you asking for money for a group home, you would want to know, what experience have you had? What education do you have? What qualifications do you have? so that I know that you'll be successful with your group home and that you'll be able to pay back the money I'm lending you. And then regardless of the lender, you will have to have a contribution from yourself of 10 to 20%, depending on the amount of money that you're looking for. So there are lots of different types of group homes, and I'm just quickly going to go over the various types. And then later on, I'll give you more detail and when we talk about funding and regulations. So there are group homes for children. And interestingly, the daycare, child daycare, is considered a group home. There are adoption or placement homes where children are brought in on a temporary basis just to find placements for fostering or adoption. There are homes for young people aging out of foster care, addiction and recovery group homes, as well as foster care, which is, of course, very common. Now, for adult daycare, again, that's not residential care, it's daycare. And then there's residential care that might, such as assisted living, that might morph into nursing and hospice. There are homes for people with mental or physical disabilities. Again, addiction, people re-entering the workforce from penal institutions, homes for veterans, and maternity homes. And I'm sure there are others. So each type of group home has differing state and local regulations. And again, if you note, we said group homes in Ohio because they are regulated by the state. They're not generally nationally regulated. So there are, if you go to, if all of these links will be live if you put the slides in presentation mode. But if you open this one, it takes you to a place where you can select a checklist for like a child daycare center, adult group home, and it will tell you exactly what the regulations are and who to contact to get more information. The Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services also has types of residential facilities. And if you click on this link, it will take you to their site and you can click on provider information. And then that will show you exactly what your requirements are, you know, as far as training, as far as applications and licensures to participate. And then the Ohio Department of Health also has information on assisted living facilities. So think about the market when you're talking about starting a group home. The population of the Cleveland metropolitan statistical area is over 2 million. And approximately 14% of those people are over 65, which means you have a population of over 300,000. Only 2% are in assisted living, and about 4% are in nursing homes. So they're not a lot by comparison to the total number. If you look at the children preschool, about 5.8%, which would be, again, a pretty large population. Also, there are about 23,000 homeless people in Cuyahoga County. So a sizable number if you're thinking about a home. Population below the poverty line, 31.4%, which is, again, a significant number. So if you think about, if you're planning to start a group home and there's self-pay, how many people are going to be able to pay that amount of money? And how can you qualify them for funding in other ways? So also, according to the Center for Disease Control, 23.5% of those over 65 are in poor health. So that would be around 70,000 in the Cleveland metropolitan statistical area. And of those not currently institutionalized, over 9% have difficulty with self-care. So again, there's about 26,000. And we saw, if you go back here, there are only about 6,000 in assisted living and 12,000. So we're talking 18,000. So there are probably another 8,000 people who need support through assisted living or some type of group living situation who are not currently in that situation. So also when you're thinking about a group home, you want to think about the location. You'd like it to be accessible, so easily accessible from highways. You'd like to have adequate parking so family and friends can visit. It would be nice to be in an area where there are sidewalks so people can be outside and get good exercise walking and enjoying the ambience when the weather's nice. And it would be nice also if it's convenient to shopping centers or other amenities that people can enjoy. Again, because a lot of assisted living clients are well able to go out and do things. They just don't feel that they're up to the stress of daily cooking and cleaning and that type of thing. The one thing, of course, that you have to be concerned about for any type of group home is what are the zoning laws? Because there are many communities that have a limit on the number of unrelated people living in a residence. So if you're looking for an area, that's one of the first things you should think about. Now, also, when you're thinking about a group home, you're probably going to need some sort of employee support, particularly if the residents that you have need 24-hour oversight. So notably, the employment rate is pretty low right now, and a lot of facilities are having major problems with staffing turnover. So, be prepared to understand that you are going to have to clearly market to get people to work for you. Overall, the problems are the inability to pay competitive salaries, particularly in those group homes or assisted living facilities that have some financial support from the state or local government. Getting trained personnel is difficult. And again, even non-medical personnel, if they're just doing cleaning, housekeeping, cooking, whatever they're doing at the facility, they still need to be trained in CPR, in safety, and in special management, special needs management for those clients who have need some type of support, which is probably why they're in a group home. So that's just a quick overview. And now that you have some of the ideas, let's talk about what you need to do next. So to start out, the first approach is determine what the demand is for the type of home that you want. Now, you can go to the websites of the agencies that support those specific homes, and we're going to give you the resources later. Some of them are actively seeking providers. And if you read their annual report, often they'll tell you, we want to open X number of residential facilities over the next year, 3 years, or 5 years. So you can get a sense of how willing they're going to be to support your efforts in putting together a group home. You want to look at what current facilities exist. Do they have waiting lists? How many residents do they have? So if you're looking at a particular type of group home and you see that all of the facilities are not filled, that perhaps they have capacity, filled capacity of, say, 75 or 80%, you might want to rethink whether it's a good idea, unless there's some special reason, say there's an area underserved, et cetera, that you might want to think about. There's a wonderful resource that we have available in the Cleveland area called the Cleveland Public Library that has all kinds of wonderful databases you can go into and look up all the type of group homes that you are looking for. Say I'm wanting to start an assisted living. I can get a list of all the assisted living homes, where they're located, the actual addresses, who the manager is, how many employees they have. So good information that would help you decide, say, where you want to locate your facility, or whether, what size you might want to think about. So there are lots of information available. They also have a database called Insights, which is really a review of the industry and looking at industry trends. So that, again, provides information on what's happening in the industry. And that might be helpful in you developing your strategic plan. You also have to think about, do you want to be a nonprofit or a for-profit company? And part of it is, what is the purpose of your business? A for-profit company, bottom line, is ultimately in business to make money. That doesn't mean that you aren't interested in helping people. It just means that you want to make a living from the business that you have, and that's fine. A nonprofit, excuse me, a nonprofit give me a minute. So sorry. Well, for nonprofit, your primary purpose is just helping people, not necessarily making a profit. In fact, you can make a profit, but those profit needs to go back into the business. The second thing to think about is your funding sources. Where are you going to get the money to support your business? If you're a for-profit, you can go to a bank or a traditional lending source. If you're a nonprofit, it's much more of a challenge to raise money. And we can talk a little bit more about that. Also, if you're a for-profit, you're looking more at you as your residents as customers. They're buying your services. Whereas if you're a nonprofit, you're looking more that they're clients for whom you're providing services. So subtle differences. A major difference is the leadership of the organization. If you are a for-profit, you are the CEO, the manager, the executive, whatever you would like to be, but you have control of your business. You might have a board of advisors, but you're the decision maker. On the other hand, if you're a not for profit, you have to establish a board, and ultimately the board becomes the governing body. You can be part of the board, or you can be the executive director. If you want to be the executive director, that means you report to the board and you're an ex officio member of the board. But the board actually makes decisions about the strategic planning, and they're also responsible for assuring that the resources that you need are necessary, are provided. So a totally different approach to how the organization is structured. The organization culture may be different. Again, if you're for profit, you're thinking about the bottom line. How can we save money? Not that you want to do things on the cheap, but you want to be cost effective. Whereas if you're a nonprofit, you might be more focused on what your purpose is and less focused on cost effectiveness. Taxation-wise, there is an advantage. If you're a nonprofit, you can get a tax exemption through the Internal Revenue Service that for-profits are not able to attain. And as far as staffing, nonprofits tend to try to get a staff of volunteers who are basically non-paid staff versus having to pay all of the staff. So there are things that you need to think about and weigh to decide what you want to do. There are some agencies that sponsor these group homes require a nonprofit status, but many do not. And so that's something you have to look into and think about, because it will make a big difference on how you structure and run your business. So you'll need a business plan. And again, these are links to various options that you might take to starting a business plan. The Startup Roadmap is a series of 7 webinars with tools that help you stepwise through developing your business plan. You don't necessarily have to do all 12, and you don't necessarily have to do them in a particular order. But if you work with a mentor, it really helps you think through your process and put together your business plan. You can download a workbook for our Simple Steps series. And again, it goes through the various steps that you need to take to start a business. And again, you can work with a mentor who will help you go through the Simple Steps process. You can find some sample business plans at this. The closest I could come was an emergency shelter business plan. But in fact, the Cleveland Public Library also has a resource of business plans, a much more, a much broader selection. So you might want to try the Cleveland Public Library to get a sample business plan. That will, again, give you a guide. And then you could also go to Chat GPT and answer questions. Say, I want to start a group home to support veterans. What are the agencies that are responsible? How many clients will I need to have in order to be effective? And just keep a reiterative question answer, and GPT will help you put together, again, a guide for a business plan. Here are the elements of a business plan. You need, of course, your mission statement, some discussion about your company background. Why do you want to do your business? What exact services are you going to be providing? There's a lot of different choices depending on the type of client that you choose to serve. You need a marketing plan. So even if there tends to be a high demand for the kind of service you have to make people aware that you exist, how to reach you, what kind of information they can get from you. So you need to have a good marketing plan. You need to have competitor analysis. You need to know what's a reasonable charge for your services. What are other organizations charge? What services are they providing under the same type of situation? So it's always good to know your competition and understand the industry. It's good to do a SWOT analysis. This is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths and weaknesses are really related to your internal business. That means, do you have the qualifications necessary to run your business? If not, that might be a weakness that you need to correct. Perhaps you've been working in a group home and you have a good understanding of the operations, how things work. That's a strength. So you can list all of those strengths and weaknesses. And then when you look at the exterior environment, what are the opportunities? Well, again, if there's a demand, and certainly if you're looking at the elderly population, there's a growing demand. That's a great opportunity. But what are the threats? Maybe there are new regulations coming down about training or safety issues, whatever. The government is always coming up with some new rule that makes you do extra work without actually benefiting a whole lot. And then you need to have an operational plan. And I always recommend that you want to think about, when my client walks through the door, what do I need in place to bring that person in, the intake? What kind of forms do I need, or entry program? Who's going to do that? Who's going to greet the client, show them around? What type of welcoming area? Do we need a lobby? What are the common spaces we need? What does each individual room look like? What kind of furnishings do I need? What kind of equipment do I need? Those are all things that you need to be aware of because they impact on your financial plan. And one of the most important things, of course, is having a good, solid financial plan. So you know exactly what your costs are going to be and your expenses. And that helps you plan what your charges need to be. And gives you a good idea, is this going to be feasible? Sometimes we find with smaller residential facilities that you need say a minimum of 5 or 6 people in order to make it break even. And that's one of the things you need to be concerned about. Again, depending on what services, et cetera, you're providing, sometimes scaling makes it more cost effective, and therefore the potential profit is better. And then it's good to say, well, we're going to launch this in July, so here are the steps we need to do going from here to then to make sure that we have everything in place. We need the building, we need the furnishings, we need the staff. All of those things need to follow a timeline so they all come together when you're ready to open the doors. So we're going to get a little more detail on group homes for children. And a lot of people do home daycare. There are 2 types. The type A is for 7 to 12 children. The type B is up to 6 children. And if you have your own children, they need to be counted in that number. And if you're interested in child daycare, starting point is the state-approved agency in Cleveland to essentially certify your daycare center. So you want to contact them as a starting point and understand all of the regulations that you need to meet. Again, depending on the type of A or B that you're interested in. Group homes for children, there are these different types. All of the regulations and payments go through the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services. So that's one fortunate thing. The regulations might be different depending on which area you're in, but still Jobs and Family Services will be able to help you with that. So that's a really great service to have it focused in one place. Now, you might also think about a child placement agency where you actually have mostly temporary or legal custody of children for a limited period of time because they're basically there to either move on to a fostering situation or an adoption situation. And I do believe that there is some need for this type of facility. And then what they call a private non-custodial agency, that you keep children for a pretty short length of time, again, as a transition between foster homes, adoption services, and so forth. So again, this all works through Jobs and Family Service agencies. Now, there is a program for young people transitioning from foster care. It's totally voluntary, and it's for young people leaving foster care between the ages of 18 and 20. But they must be in school. They have to be, what happened there? Okay, so they have to either be working or in an employment program or have a medical condition that prevents them from going to school or work. and they could qualify for a payment of up to $5,000, which means that would be used to pay their expenses. So the funding comes directly from the client and not from the agency. Again, that's administered through Jobs and Family Services. And if we're talking about group home for adults, there are in assisted living, there are 3 levels of care. Level 1, which is the residents are mostly independent. They might need reminders to do their daily living requirements. They might need a little bit help, but not constant supervision. Level 2 is an intermediate. And then level 3 is a high level. So you would see these, especially in larger assisted living facilities where they have a level 1, then moves to a level 2 where they start adding skilled nursing, and then level 3 where they go to a full nursing situation or a hospice. Adult foster care. Again, the foster homes are regulated by the Department on Aging. And it's very similar to group homes for kids. You've got a number of 3 to 5 is considered a home, family home, and a 3 to 17 is a group home. And this has some limitations on the number of people with disabilities that you can have in those homes. So again, here's the place to look for that information. Then there's adult daycare, which you might have just a social center where people bring their loved ones while they're working, and they come in the afternoon and pick them up the same way they do with child care. But then you would provide meals, some kind of recreation, and maybe some health-related services, blood pressure, medication, that sort of thing. You can actually upgrade that to provide medical and health centers with some therapeutic services. And then there are specialized centers, as I'm sure you're probably all aware of, with people with dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. They are not licensed in Ohio. However, there are some guidelines, and you go, here's the link to the guidelines for the National Adult Day Services Association. And for disabled residents, Ohio has 12 centers for independent living, where people who are disabled can go to the center. They will help. They're called LEAP centers, linking employment, abilities, and potential. There's one in Cleveland on Lorraine Avenue. So if you're thinking about providing a group home for individuals with disabilities, you might want to think about locating it where it's convenient to this office. So if they're traveling there on a daily basis, it would be most easier for them and for you as well. So assisted living then are facilities that have larger numbers. They provide both accommodation and personal care services. Again, they're regulated by the Ohio Department of Health. This is the website. And again, they generally, there are some that are simply assisted living, but many of them have graduated from assisted living to skilled nursing and then to hospice. And then there's housing for recovery services. So they, again, this a new terminology, the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. So these used to be called halfway houses, sober living homes, etc. They're now all called recovery residences. So even if you don't provide treatment services, you still need to be trained in recovery support, safety, CPR, and so forth. And if you're just going to be providing the residents, you probably want to be located near a treatment center. And these are licensed and regulated by the Mental Health and Addiction Services. And again, there are several levels, accommodations, personal care service, and mental service. So kind of a full service is level one. There are, I'd say, a lot of houses are level two. They provide accommodation, supervision, and some personal care services. Level three is strictly room and board for people with mental illnesses. So you have those options. Again, it depends on what extent that you have the experience in working with people who have addictions and are recovering. And here's a link to the licensure and the regulations for those facilities. Now, residence for people with mental health and developmentally disabled. This actually means a person having significantly sub-average general intellectual function. In other words, they're considered what we have called mentally retarded. They may also have developmental issues. They are regulated and licensed by the County Department of Developmental Disabilities. This is the link for the Cuyahoga County. Summit County also has, every county has a Department of Developmental Disabilities. So it would depend on what county you're in that you would contact them. Obviously, if this is a home that requires someone with a great deal of ability in dealing with people with these issues. So I guess if you are interested, you already have those skills. So recovery houses for ex-felons, again, is a specialized group. It is required to be either nonprofit or a government agency. So not only does it include residential facilities, but these ex-felons need to be monitored, and they're under supervision of the Department of Rehabilitation. And they're generally placed in a halfway house by the court. So it's a requirement. These are licensed by the Ohio Department of Rehab and Corrections. So you can contact them or go to their website. And again, this would be one area where zoning is probably a critical issue. So let's spend a couple of minutes just talking about who pays for care. And it's just to decide if you are a caregiver for your own family, you might qualify as a caregiver for payment. If you're a nonprofit, again, funding is a challenge. You need to look for agencies that support your type of group home. Some of them do provide funding depending on, again, the type of client that you have. You can try pitch contests, try Cleveland Foundation and other foundations do fundraising events. But there's no question that it is a challenge to fund if you're a nonprofit. If you're a for-profit, again, you can go to the traditional bank loans. There are alternate funders such as ECDI here in Cleveland. You can look for investors. So a lot of different opportunities. And this article is a link to an article on our website that discusses different ways of finding funding and hints and tips in doing so. So assisted living is generally self-pay. So most assisted living communities have a choice. You know, they will give you a single monthly fee that covers a whole bolus of activities and services, and it might include housekeeping and transportation. On the other hand, there might be a base fee and then additional payment for whatever services they use, like maybe laundry and that sort of thing. So each one is a little bit different, but in general, they all run about the same amount. And the average monthly cost, the latest figures we could get were from 2019, was about $4,000. That's per month, so $48,000 a year. Alzheimer's and dementia care, definitely more. So a lot of families end up paying these costs, or people are able to buy long-term care insurance that will pay up to some level per month. It's very expensive, but if there's a family history of dementia or Alzheimer's, that might be a worthwhile investment. I always told my children, if they were concerned, they could pay for the long-term care insurance. So one way to handle it. So there is public funding for some of these facilities. There are Medicare waivers that cover assisted living facilities like assisted living. There are two different programs, and people have to qualify for Medicaid. So again, that's something, if you are interested in that, you might want to help people understand what they need to be qualified. They either need to be Medicaid eligible, they can be blind or disabled, and this Ohio Residential State Supplemental Program you can apply for a monthly supplement. Unfortunately, it's not a lot, so the maximum fee that they can charge is $917 as of this year for basic services, which means they could get additional services, you know, laundry, cleaning, other things, transportation that may not be included in the base fee. So if you're interested in that type of facility and those types of clients, a good financial plan is extremely important to see if it's actually feasible for you to do that for the number of clients that you're interested in. Funding for mental health and addiction services can be a little better. You can go and create a profile in the Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services website. You can get an Ohio ID first, then create your profile, and then here's a link to their funding opportunities. The interesting thing is that there's possible federal funding for recovery residences. And this is, again, in addition to or in lieu of the Ohio funding. So this is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration of the federal government. So if you're operating a sober living home, you can probably apply for a grant. And particularly if you're opening your house to the homeless, you might also be able to get further grants. And here they have 2 block grant programs. You can find their applications here, and we'll see. Again, definitely worth pursuing if you're looking at recovery residences. Now, in general, for veterans, you can be certified through the VA to provide housing for veterans, but in general, they are self-pay. There are 2 programs that veterans can apply for. These are the monthly amounts that they're eligible for. Again, it takes a long time to get through the process. Here's some information about how to facilitate that. And then there's a comparison of the 2 programs that are available. There's a directed care program. So again, they get the money and they can decide how to pay it out. So, it's something you need to work with the veterans. So if you have a facility and you're receiving fundings from any agency, these are some of the things that you need to have in place. You need an agreement for your residents. You're really describing what services are being provided. A disclosure agreement, if there's anything, say you have elderly residents, but maybe you have a sexual, a person who's having to report as a sexual deviant or something, that would need to be in your agreement. You have to make them clear what are the admissions requirements, and what if you are going to discharge them, say, to a skilled nursing facility or some other higher level facility, you need to clarify what would be the rationale and the requirements for that happening. If some of your services can be contracted through third parties, those need to be identified. If you're going to do medication administration, who's going to do it and what are their qualifications. You need to identify what are your staffing requirements, the ratio, for instance, of staff to client. What training requirements do you have for your staff? And what background checks do you perform? And what inspections are you current on? So those are some of the things to be aware of. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. Again, these are just additional resources, and a lot of them just replications, but do try the Cleveland Public Library. As I said, they also have a list of many different types of business plans, sample business plans. So that'd be a good place to get one that you could use as a guide. You can get information on all kinds of population densities, different areas in Cleveland, et cetera. Demographics, things like that on the census. Center for Disease Control has a lot of information on the elderly and the types of diseases that elderly people have. Of course, you can Google things and go to trade and professional associations. Here's a link to the Ohio Administrative Code regarding nursing homes, adult foster homes, Area Agency on Aging, the Living Medicaid Waiver Program, halfway houses, nursing homes must pass an inspection. So again, here's the requirements, information about elderly rights, and the EPA if you need information. So I think we've covered everything I was going to be. Do I have any examples for the Columbus, Ohio? Actually, no, I don't. But you can, again, get exactly the same numbers for, if you go to the US Census, you can type in Columbus, Ohio, and it will give you the total population. It'll give you the demographic breakdown by age range, income level, things like that. You can get that either through the Census Bureau or, again, probably you have the same type of public library that we have in Cleveland, and you could use that. So I would just talk to your reference librarian. As I said, yes, you will get a copy of the slides and also a link to the recording. So I'm trying to see, is there anything else? I'm not aware that Cuyahoga County offers a loan forgiveness program to group homes. And again, I'm not familiar with those tax credits. So it's something that you could probably find through the Cuyahoga County Department of Development. They would have information about tax credits. Oh, I can't tell you what specific types of insurance because it depends on what type of home. But I would suggest just talking to a residential or residential and commercial insurance broker about, I mean, obviously you need liability insurance, but depending on the type of client that you have, you may need some very specialized insurance. So I would refer you to a broker for that. There are programs that assist in funding property acquisition and rehabilitation. I know the VA from time to time has grants available for residential property upgrades. The land bank in Cleveland has some properties available that they would be willing to provide to group homes. So again, I would really recommend that you work with your mentor to explore these options, depending on, again, what direction you are planning to go. I've tried to give you some ideas, but they're general. And if you want to be very specific, once you decide the type of group home that you want to do, then work with your mentor and he or she will guide you and help you pursue the direction that you want to go. So I've tried to give you a lot of resources as far as what the general requirements and regulations are, but I really haven't given you, the nitty-gritty details that you'll have to dig into to actually do the work. So to sign up with a mentor, just go to our website. I will put our website in here. It's www.score.org/Cleveland. Or if you're in Columbus or Cincinnati, it would be /Columbus or Cincinnati. And on the website, you'll see right in front of you, sign up for a mentor, and you can actually look at the local member profiles and see somebody who you feel is going to be the right mentor for you and send that individual a request in directly. So, or you can just sign up and have us match you up with someone we think can help you. So I don't think there are any homes you can start where zoning doesn't matter. You always have to check out the zoning. As I said, there are a lot of communities that very specifically don't want group homes, and they limit the number of unrelated individuals who can live in a residence. So I would say, number one, that's the first thing to look at when you're considering a community. What are the zoning laws? Sometimes it's possible to get a waiver, but I don't think they happen very often. So I think we've got all the questions. As far as adult daycare, again, that's in some ways pretty special. And again, I would refer you to working with a mentor on that, Mercedes. I think it's an interesting idea and something that might work out well for people who are interested in working with older adults and giving them an opportunity to have something fruitful to do during the day. Okay, so I think we've taken up enough of your time. I thank you all for bearing with me. If you're interested in grants, again, that's something that we do a webinar on grants. It probably coming up maybe in February. But again, there's a recorded webinar on our website on grants. So I would suggest you go to our website and look through the recorded webinars. Let's see. I think they've all been answered. So again, thank you for bearing with me. I'm sorry my voice is so scratchy today. But again, thank you for showing up. I hope that it was helpful, and look forward to seeing you as a member of our mentee population. So enjoy the rest of your day.